Hello, my name is Kendon Shook, and this is my presentation over students and attention. First off, the teacher I interviewed for this presentation is Miss Shelley Silsby of Clarksville High School. She is currently the vice principal, and she has been for the past 2 years. However, before she was promoted, she taught at Clarksville High School for 14 years. She taught foreign language, more specifically Spanish 1 through 3 and French 1 and 2. These were electives so that she had a mixture of sophomore through senior class in each of her classes. The main problem she said she noticed was holding students' attention throughout the entire lesson and also getting students to engage with her during each lesson. Before we could talk about how to solve the problems, first we must talk about what different causes. The main cause of attention deficit would be new or difficult material. This is very common among foreign languages as students often want to default back to their native language, and learning a foreign language in later years makes this more difficult as they already have that default set preference that they prefer. The second one would be disinterest. This is related to if they are not interested in the language they're studying or if they are struggling to understand it because of their default language. Thirdly are methods. Most commonly used in a foreign language class would be PowerPoint presentation or guided notes. These are very common in most classrooms and most subjects, so it is a very repetitive process for students. And finally, there are outside problems. These usually the teacher has no effect over, such as studying for different classes or problems in the household or personal relationships with the students. So the first technology I use to help with these would be the Google Expeditions app and virtual reality that comes along with this. It is very inclusive and lets students feel and see the culture of the area firsthand as opposed from just reading about it or learning it. They are in the area and they can see it from a street point of view. Secondly, I chose the animated scratch quiz. This is very helpful in a listening program so students can hear recordings of different conversations or recordings and come up with responses. So this would be great for that. The only downside is that there's not an individualistic assessment that I will attend later. So why did I choose these? The virtual reality program, first of all, it is on the mobile phone. So it allows movement within the classroom. It allows students to get up, move around, get their mind off of taking notes, and it refocuses their mind towards the lesson afterwards. Secondly, it provides a break in the lesson. This could be used to help transition into topics, or it could just be used to provide students with a break to get away from just writing notes and instead go exploring something in the virtual reality. Thirdly, it encourages higher thought processes, such as observing different firsthand and interpreting what they are seeing. Most of the information provided within the virtual reality or Google Expeditions app is not a set outright answer, but however can be interpreted to discover actual answers to other problems. Finally, it piques interest and engages students. So it is something different from a PowerPoint or a worksheet. It is explored. It is set up by their own curiosity. It can also be used very easily in tandem with a worksheet to help students with that permanence that a worksheet gives them. Secondly, I use the animated quiz because it is a creative outlet for students. It cannot be individually graded except for on a participation grade, which is not necessarily a bad thing. However, how this will be done is once the animation would be set up to where it would loop every time the students got the question wrong and only follow through if they got the question right. The ending page of the animation would have been alternate ending, so this would allow the teacher to just go around and see if the students made it to the end of it, and that's how they would mark their grade on this. So the lesson I had set up is a study in the culture and geography of southern France. They would study the different countries surrounding France, major cities, major landscapes, mountains, water, bodies of water, and they would discuss how this would affect the tourism, the culture, the food, and the different exports within the area. So to start the lesson, you would start large. So you would start with mostly the countries surrounding the area, such as France, Italy, Spain, and then you would move into different bodies of water, such as the Rhone River that comes in it, or the Alps that surround the eastern portion of France. This gives you a general idea of the area of France, and it allows you to talk about foreign relations within the country and how those countries affect the culture, such as the food and exports of the area. After they're done talking about the countries, we would move on to the Google Expeditions app. This, I specifically chose the field trip to southern eastern France and Monaco tour. I'd use it. They would be given a worksheet that would ask questions about each portion of the app, and they would have to explore the app and start solving the first section of the worksheet. They would just do this to help break up the lesson, and so they would have a break from taking notes. Then once they get used to the hang of it, we would go back to the PowerPoint, and this would just allow them to get a break from sitting in their chairs, get them moving in the classroom. After we're done and everybody's had a chance to look at the app, we would move on to the portions of France. So that would be the provinces and Basque countries, and then major cities. So Basque Country actually is a portion of France and Spain. They're working on their own independent country. However, they are technically still part of those two countries. They have their own language, their own systems of powers, but they are still considered part of France. Another example would be Caen, Antibes, and Nice. These are major cities within France, and even Monaco, which is another large country that is considered part of France. These are focused mainly in the Expedition app that they just looked at, so this would be a great iteration of what they're just studying on the Expedition app. And finally, we would end up the lesson with a quiz on Scratch. This animated quiz would be very short. It'd be multiple choice or short answer, in which they would follow through the quiz and it would just loop back to the beginning whenever they got a question wrong. So eventually they would have to get each question right, and at the end there would be a different animated or a different page shown to show that they finished the quiz, and they would have to just come up and show the teacher that they finished it, and they would just get a participation grade, very few points for it. So like I said, there would be a worksheet presented with the virtual reality. It'd be multiple choice, 20 questions, some short answers, and it would cover the information presented within the Expedition app itself. And that they would take home as a homework grade, and they would continue that at home on their own. The animated quiz would be a participation grade in class, so it'd be worth very few points, but it'd be good practice and it could be a good study resource for the students. And finally, their note taking towards the PowerPoint would be assessed within their test grades because that would be what they'd be using to study for the test. These are the standards that are covered within it. It is the connection between world language and other cultures. The quote is the target of the standards within the lesson. And these are resources. Thank you.